children. And she's represented by an attorney. We reached out to her. She strenuously objects. We're trying to reach her attorney right now just to see what his position would be. So, Your Honor, I would suggest if they really want to pursue this, let's set it aside right now so that you can hear from
Is that helpful, Rick?
Yes, sir. I was just trying to see if,
I'm glad you think it is. That's my idea. I'm gonna keep taking credit for it. Is sure witness wrong?
Okay. We can get all that. That was his idea.
I thought it was gonna be more helpful to the jury in the end. Alrighty. 12:30, 12:45, and first lunch. All right. Are you witness, please?
Your Honor, we're called Sherry Henry.
Someone's here and from the testimony about the good shall be the truth. The whole thing about the truth, so not. Have a seat right there, please, ma'am. Once you see it, state your full name, spelling and last name.
My name is Sherry Knight Henry, middle name Sherry Denise Henry.
Miss Henry, how are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Okay.
She's got to take down everything you say, so if you'll just make sure you speak up. You
Okay.
can't get down head nods or so yes or no.
Okay.
Do you work anywhere now?
No, I'm retired.
And you're retired from where?
The Lexington County Department of Social Services.
How long were you there?
I was there for 27 years.
Now, when you ended up as a case manager, when you started out, what was your job?
I came in as a temp and was working part-time and took on a caseload, and I guess they liked my work, and I progressively did investigations as a CPS assessment worker, and then worked myself up, I guess, into supervision.
And can you tell the jury what does a caseworker do?
A caseworker slash, I would say, investigator goes out on a case once it has been, a report has been received into the agency. And what that caseworker main job is to do is to go out and assess risks, to make contact with the child, do any type of safety prevention for that child. And then if the case is, meets a certain criteria, there'll be further intervention into the family. You have like 60 days in order to investigate that case.
So is that generally the case that when you get a case, you've got 60 days to investigate it?
Each and every case, yes.
And I believe that DSS was involved with the Jones family 3 times, correct?
Yes.
The first time in 2011 were when Tim and Amber were together, and I guess the house was kind of messy.
Yes, and I think it was something about him having tools scattered in the living area.
And I guess there was some, that creates a dangerous condition for the children, because I guess there was some remodeling going on at the trailer, and you don't want
Yes,
kids and
at the
those
time,
things around.
yes,
And that was what DSS determines is called a neglect case, correct?
yes,
And you were not the worker on that, but I guess you were the supervisor of the worker.
at that time, yes.
And ultimately, that case was closed, correct?
Yes, I think it was substantiated and closed.
Substantiated for just neglect.
Yes,
And when they go out there, they take a look at the kids to make sure there's no physical abuse or anything else like that, even
exactly,
though it was dealing with a messy house.
exactly, yes,
And then you became involved on a second case on May 5th of 2014, correct?
that's correct.
And that came in as a 0 to 2 PA case. Can you tell the jury when it says, first of all, what does PA stand for?
Okay, well, again, well, if I can say it like this, there's different levels of intervention for DSS. And if I recall, we would have a 0 to 2, which meant that we need to get out there within 2 hours to assess risk. And so that is a high priority case. And then there's a 12 to 24 that we are allowed to, as long as we make contact with that child within that time frame. But either case, each time you make the contact, you're going to be assessing the same thing, any risk to the children.
And so, since you got that as a 0 to 2, you went out to Saxcotta within a couple of hours, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
And you met with Natan.
Yes.
He didn't seem to indicate any fear of his father, did he?
No, not at that time. And also, while, you know, making that contact, there were teachers, there was 2 teachers in there with me also. And, you know, a lot of times, you know, DSS will allow that because it allows the child to see someone familiar and to relax them, so.
Let me show you what's been marked as defense 104 through 108. Those are the photographs that were taken of Natan that day, correct?
Correct.
And I believe one of the teachers took those.
Either the teacher or I took them.
So
I'm sure I took those.
once you ended up meeting there at the school, did you then call Tim and have him come meet you someplace on that same day?
Yes, after seeing the, you know, the marks and knowing of the allegation, I telephoned Mr. Jones, and he was at work, and told him that we had received a report, because again, we have to let the parent know that we're involved, and asked him to come up to my office, yes.
And did you have a couple of officers there at your office with you?
Yes, because of the nature of the report, I felt that it, you know, I didn't know if I needed to go ahead and look, that it was a higher level. So had 2 detectives from Lexington County Sheriff's Department to come, and we did a joint interview with Mr. Jones. And then, if I recall correctly, then one of the detectives went one-on-one with him just to further assess and get a feel for him, yes.
And so you spoke to Tim about the incident.
Yes, we read the allegation. It's not any type of paraphrasing. It's this is what has been reported to DSS.
And ultimately, I guess he told you something about he and Elias had put a train set together, and I guess Natan had gotten jealous and broke it.
Right, that's what he said. He said that they had worked really hard on this train track, and he said that Elias just destroyed it. That was his word.
Right, you mean Natan?
Natan destroyed it, and that was upsetting to him.
And I guess he told you that he had kind of jerked him up by the collar and spanked him?
Yes, that was the main thing, to get an understanding as to where, you know, the marks had come from. And he never stated that he had choked him. He demonstrated to us that he had jerked him up by his collar. And he demonstrated this.
And you were able to determine also through that interview where the children went after school? In other words,
Yes,
they had
yes,
a
still,
babysitter?
yeah, but, it's just a protocol thing, knowing that he works and everything, that, well, who's keeping the children? And
And
so, yes,
that babysitter was Sue Dockery?
yes, at that time, yes.
And so you did, at that point in time, do you do what's called a safety plan with him?
Yeah, once we had, the first thing was that we had to assess if these children needed to come out immediately. Okay, that was with law enforcement and myself, as well as other agency staff members. Um, and after that had been decided that that was a no, then a safety plan was implemented. And again, with that safety plan, of course, you would be restricting whatever that behavior is. If it was a dirty house and you need to clean up the house, if you need to take the kids to the doctor, you need to take the kids to the doctor. But in this case, because of the physicalness and the marks on the child, it was that you will use no discipline with them. You will not horseplay, you will not wrestle with the children.
And so after you met with Tim at the office, did you go back to the house or to Tim's house?
Yes, after, with, myself and law enforcement, I just wanted to, and I guess it's just me, yes, I did follow him back to the house.
And can you tell the jury kind of what's your thought process? Why are you going out to the house after meeting
Well-
at school in the office? And that's all on the same day.
Yes, all on the same day.
What's your reasoning for going out to the house?
One thing is that we do have to set foot in the home environment. You have to see where, what the children are living in. And so, again, I wanted to see exactly that. I wanted to know because I knew it had, you don't have a chance to go in there and clean up because I've just called you from work. So I'm going to see it as it is. And so I did follow him back in. And I also wanted to observe the interaction of his presence with the children.
And what did you observe?
Well, at that time, they were fine.
And I noticed your notes say that the house was cluttered but not unsafe, so not like the 2011 just.
Oh, no. It's just, well, it's a man with 5 children and a baby, and it was just, clothes, nothing that was of a health hazard, nothing feces and all that on the floor, just a little clutter, clothes everywhere.
Notice that your report also says excessive religious items. Do you recall what you meant by that?
Well, I just remember that I can recall, I saw crosses on the wall, and I think I may have seen a Bible. I may have seen some, little, like religious little phrases, that type of thing.
And once you got done at the house, did you do what's called a placement staffing or a placement evaluation? And could you describe to the jury kind of what that is and why you do that in a case like this?
Yes. That next morning, I did ask for a placement staffing, which at the time was a procedure that DSS will do, that even though, law enforcement had decided as well that night, that prior evening, that the children did not need to come out to discuss if DSS needed to do any type of extra intervention in removing the kids. And it was decided at that present time, no. But that's a formality, a policy thing.
So in other words, on the 5th, you or law enforcement didn't decide that the children needed to be taken into emergency protective custody. I guess the next day, that's just kind of an additional layer.
Yeah, another precaution, another assessment, another fact checking. Yeah.
And it appears that you went back to Saxgotha then that next day on the 6th.
Yes. Again, that was a procedural type thing, and then it's just something that I, you know, wanted to do. I wanted to find out if the child had been pressured or what happened after I left, because this incident has occurred, if there had been any other repercussions to the child. And at that time, he was a little reserved, but he said no. Again, I had, I think it was a nurse, school nurse, set in on that interview as well. And
And you didn't see any other marks or
no,
bruises or
no
anything
other
that caused you
marks,
concern?
nothing.
It looks like next you ended up going back to the house and made an unannounced home visit on May 15th. Kind of, I think it's kind of self-explanatory, but explain to us, what does an unannounced home visit mean?
Unannounced visit is just where there's no like pre-calling saying, oh, I'm coming to your house today. It's when we actually, DSS will actually just knock on the door and you're there. And again, it's to capture the home environment in its natural state, and the demeanor of the children. And that is just something that I personally always felt was a good technique to do,
And
even
when
though
you,
it was required by DSS.
and when you came out on the 15th, what were they doing?
This is when, because I believe it was in the evening, it was after hours. Myra, it was her birthday, and Mr. Jones had bought cupcakes for her. And they were in there, and when I walked in, they were, he was, I think they may have been eating the cupcakes. I really cannot remember, but I just remember there were cupcakes. He had the baby on his hip, and they were celebrating her birthday. And
So all the children were celebrating Mira's birthday,
yeah, they were in there eating cupcakes.
and um, Amber was not there, correct?
No, when I came in, I cannot remember if Tim was talking to her on the phone or if she was talking to one of the children. But I remember he said to her, if I'm remembering correctly, that DSS is here. And so he gave me the phone, and that's when I spoke to her, and I identified myself, and then she said, who she was, and so she knew, my presence was there.
And so when you go there on that unannounced, do you check the children again for any marks or bruises? Or
It was just a kind of look-see-see. I did not pull up their clothes or anything like that. No, I did not on that occasion.
And I think at that point in time, Tim had told you that Amber hadn't physically seen the children in about 4 months.
In 4 months, right. And then that's, he just, well, yeah. And
it looks like then on June 16th, you ended up going to the babysitter Sue Dockery's home. Can you kind of tell me why you do that?
again, that's just follow-up and wanting to have contact with the children to see how the children were doing, how they were dressed. And then I also wanted to know if she had any concerns about Mr. Jones. And at that time, because I specifically asked her, and at that time, she indicated no. She said he was a good father.
And so based on that, you submitted, I guess, a fact sheet to the program coordinator for disposition on July 16th. And can you kind of tell, what is that? What is that procedure?
Okay, well, at that point, that would have been the case decision determination, and it's basically stating what is the conclusion of the investigation. Will this, and you have to state the facts of the of your conclusions, and it's just a summation of stating if DSS is going to remain involved or if the case is going to be closed or unfounded. So it's a summation, and that fact determination is then sent to the parent.
And it appears on 7/24 that the case was unfounded and closed, but that actually wasn't the way it was supposed to be closed. Is that correct?
That's correct. That was a typographical error.
It's-
Okay, the case was founded.
It was founded for substantial risk of physical
Physical.
abuse, no additional services needed.
Right.
Can you just describe to the jury, what does that mean?
Okay, again, with that case decision, that again is coming through a staffing with other DSS personnel supervisors, as well as myself. And, excuse me, would you say that again? What was my
Well,
mind?
I was just asking you about what the substantial risk of physical abuse,
Right, that was,
additional services, what does that mean?
right, it's saying that we were going to substantiate the case or found the case where it's like a threat of harm, a possibility. It could happen, okay, that the kids could be physically abused, but that there would be no service, there would be no treatment intervention into the family.
And that would mean no further, or you didn't feel at that time that there was any other further risk to the children?
Well, the agency didn't feel that there was no further risk to the children.
The agent,
Did not feel that there was any further risk to the children.
And there's a separate one that was, I guess you could find, there's just, you can find or found it for physical abuse, which is different than substantial risk of physical abuse, correct?
Right,
And
right.
I guess DSS deals with the preponderance of the evidence standard, so y'all did not feel that there was physical abuse, or at least not beyond preponderance, correct?
Exactly, yes.
And so that case is ultimately closed.
Yes.
Any time during that investigation, did you ever uncover anything that showed to you or made you think that either Mira or Natan was doing something to try to manufacture a DSS case to get back to their mother?
No. No.
Let me jump forward then. There was a second case on August 7th of 2014, and I believe is that correct?
Yes.
And I believe those allegations were that
Okay.
those allegations were that Tim had beat Elias, leaving extensive bruises, and only feeds all the children a 20-piece McNugget meal at a time, correct?
Correct.
And how did that come in as a 0 to 2 PA case also?
I believe it did, yes.
And so you're out to see the children within 2 hours,
Yes, the case was again assigned to me, yes.
and you went out to his home?
Yes, I went out there again with two Lexington County Sheriff's deputies, thinking that if this allegation is true, these children are going to be removed tonight.
And so you get out there, and I guess Tim's at his house, correct?
Let's see, I think when we drove up that they had just really gotten there. Let me see. No, the children were at the babysitters, but they had just driven up.
So Tim's at his house, the children are at the babysitter, but I guess they're neighbors?
Yes,
Live
in
pretty close
close proximity, right.
And so, do you go see, because you've got this allegation of extensive bruising, do you go see the kids immediately, and who do you take with you?
Okay, absolutely. It was two deputies with me. One of the deputies stayed with Tim. And, again, I had to read him the report to let him know why I was there. And then myself and the other deputy went to the babysitter's house. We walked down to the babysitter's house.
I believe your notes indicated that Tim seemed surprised at the allegations.
Yes, he did.
He told you that they had just gotten back from the Disney and the beach.
Right.
You
That's
recall
correct.
that? And had mentioned something about maybe a disgruntled babysitter had called in the report.
Yeah, he just kind of mumbled that out, yeah.
And I think they had also told you about Elias injuring an eye.
Yeah, when I got into the house, I saw the bandage and I just thought, oh, okay. And then they explained to me and what had happened, that the little girl had, I think, hit him with the doorknob, and the babysitter, and she um, affirmed that the child did. And then the babysitter also said that's what had happened, and that she had called Tim at work to take the child to doctor's care.
And it looked like there was some kind of medical intervention to you to fix the.
Yeah.
And you took a look at all the children.
Yes, myself as well as the deputy. We looked underneath, we looked, and
And besides the injury to the eye and I guess some diaper rash on
right when
Elaine.
right when we were looking at the baby, because I wanted to see, I made them, pull the diaper down, and the baby had a diaper rash, and the babysitter said that she thought that Mr. Jones might be buying cheap diapers, and that was irritating the baby, and so I addressed that with him.
I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. I don't want it to be-
What you want me to, can I help? Can I help you?
I'm going to show you what's been marked as defendants for ID 214 through 226. And ask if you recognize those photographs.
Yes, there's the deputy back there.
Are those the photographs that you took of the children that day? Judge, we would move.
I didn't hear her answer.
Yes.
Okay.
Judge, we would move defendants 214 through 226 into evidence.
No objection, Your Honor.
14 through 226 inclusive, all admitted without objection.
Now, with these photographs, there were some other ones that you took, I guess, of the diaper rash, some backsides, correct?
Yes.
.214 would be a picture of Natan. .215, I guess that's.
Wait, I got,
Yes.
Sorry, you just got to make sure you.
Okay.
.215, I guess that's where you have them pull up the shirt to make sure there's no bruising.
Correct.
And then .216, you do kind of the same thing with the back.
Yes.
.217 is another one of the children. I can't see the face. But that's just the chest area.
Yes.
.218, I believe, is the same thing, but the backside again.
Yes.
.219, a little bit hard to see, but it looks like just kind of shooting down.
Yes.
And .220, one of the younger children, I believe that looks down, and you can kind of see the belly button in the diaper.
Yes.
.221 is a picture of Mira.
Yes.
.222 is kind of her stomach area. 223 is her back.
Yes.
224 is Elaine.
Yes.
225 is Elias.
Yes.
And on 226, that area right there is just kind of where he had hit his eye
Yes, that's correct.
playing around with Mira on the knob.
Right.
And so after you speak with them and you take the photographs, well, let me back up. And you talked with the babysitter to see if she has any concerns?
Yes, I did.
Was there anything to report? Did you find any bruising, anything that caused you concerns at that point in time?
No. And again, in questioning her also, wanting to know, do you have any concerns? And she did not.
Let me show you what's been marked as defense for ID 227 through 234 and ask if you recognize those photographs.
Yes.
And what are those photographs of?
This is when myself and law enforcement went into the trailer that night.
So is that after you speak with the kids, the babysitter, you come back and document the condition of the trailer at that point in time?
Right. Because there was an officer that was up at the trailer with Tim. And then that's when, after I had assessed, or we had assessed the risk to the children at the babysitters, then we went up to the trailer and I went inside along with the officer.
Judge, we would move defendants 227 through 224 into evidence.
234 is
Or
not.
234, excuse me.
Okay.
No objection, Your Honor.
227 through 234, all admitted without objection.
And defendants 227, I guess, is showing a photograph of the inside of the refrigerator.
Yes.
228 is just kind of documenting, I guess, an area of the home.
Right. I think that was stepping into the trailer.
229, again, is the freezer component.
Yes.
.230 appears to be a laundry room.
Yes. The hall.
.231 is the hall.
Yes.
.232 appears to be the children's room with a crib in it.
Yes.
.233 is the restroom.
Yes.
And last, .234 appears to be kind of the family room looking into the kitchen.
Yes.
And so when you went out there that night, none of the children refused to have their photograph taken, correct?
Oh, no.
Natan didn't refuse to have his picture
No.
taken.
No.
In that case, you have 60 days, but that case was ultimately closed because of the children's death, correct?
That's correct.
So that was founded for physical abuse because of their deaths.
Yes.
And so the complaint for that August was that basically substantial bruises on Elias, and you documented that. You don't see any substantial bruising, correct?
That is correct.
You don't see any bruising except for the eye.
Absolutely.
And that feeding them a 20-piece McNugget, but you didn't find any evidence whatsoever to substantiate that either.
Well,
I-
I mean, it was food. I mean,
Okay.
you see what I'm saying?
Sure. That's all the questions I have.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir, Your Honor, may it please the court?
Sure.
Good morning or good day, Ms. Henry.
Good morning.
You've gotten a lot of questions about some of your interactions with the family, so I want to try and keep track of exactly the order of these events. So this report here regarding the time, May 5th, 2014, bruising to the neck. That's the first one I want to talk about. That report actually came into you guys at DSS from the Times K-5 teacher, correct?
The reporter.
Okay, and may need you to speak up just a little bit more if you can put the microphone up.
Okay.
And so just to go through the process of how a report is made at DSS, it comes in on the phone line to an intake worker, correct?
That's correct.
And you're a caseworker who goes out in the field to investigate allegations.
That's correct.
So you're not necessarily the person who's getting the phone call when it first comes in.
That's correct.
And so when we talk about reports being made to DSS, a school teacher, specifically a kindergarten teacher, they'd be a mandatory reporter.
That's correct.
And can you tell us a little bit, just so the jury is aware as well, what's a mandatory reporter? What's meant by that term?
Well, it's anyone who observes any type of neglectful, any type of abusive behavior that is being perpetrated on a child. They are mandated to report that. And that can be teachers, nurses, any professional person can, anyone from the community can also, call in a report. But a mandated one, they are required by law to report to DSS.
All right. And do you have a copy with you today of that safety plan?
Let's see.
And that'd be the safety plan, Ms. Henry, that's going to go with this report regarding the time, May 5th, 2014. The 5th, 15.
Okay, I don't see it in this packet, unless I'm overlooking it. Okay, I don't have a copy of it.
And you don't have a copy of that, Ms. Henry, the DSS safety plan? Okay. I'm going to show you an item then and ask you whether or not you recognize it. And this would be a new bit of Defense 15. Just take a moment to look over that and refresh your memory.
Yes,
All right, and you're familiar with that safety plan because it's actually in your handwriting, correct?
that's correct.
So let's go through some of the steps that led up to that safety plan. So on May 5th, 2014, a school teacher by the name of Amy Shearer makes a report to DSS because bruising had been observed to Natan's neck, correct?
Correct.
And you see the photographs that are in evidence. It also included markings to both of his forearms, correct?
Correct.
And so when that call comes in from Saxcota Elementary, you are sent out to the school to follow up on that, correct?
Correct.
And at this point, when you arrive at the school, Timothy Jones has no idea that the school has made this report.
Correct.
And so you, under South Carolina law, have the right to go and interview children about abuse without having the parent there, correct?
That's correct.
And that's done as a means to allow you DSS caseworkers to interview children confidentially without their parent interfering.
Correct.
And so you arrived there at the school, and I believe Ms. Shearer, that same teacher that made the report regarding Natan, she sat in on that interview with you guys, didn't she?
Yes.
And that was, I believe, back in the counselor's office there at Saxcota,
Yes.
principal's office. And when you got there, you actually interviewed Natan yourself, didn't you?
Yes.
And he told you what happened, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
All right, need you to speak up just a little bit more, Ms.
I was looking at my notes. I'm
Okay.
sorry. I'm sorry.
All right. So Natan told you what happened, didn't he?
Yes.
And he showed you what happened as well, didn't he, with his hands?
He never said that he was choked that I remember.
You don't remember? You
Right.
don't remember that
Right.
disclosure by Natan?
Right.
All right. Do you remember his teacher being in there and telling you what he said and what he showed her?
Yes.
All right. And you saw the photographs as well, correct?
Correct.
I believe those were taken by the school nurse, Miss Linhart.
Okay. Well, I know I had taken pictures also, so, you know.
And then another thing you did after a meeting with Natan is you pulled Mira out of her class, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And Mira had no idea that you guys were even coming that day, right?
That's correct.
And same with Natan, he had no idea that you guys were even coming, did he?
No, he didn't.
And so the kids are kind of caught by surprise with this report, aren't they?
Yes.
And do you have your notes from when you pulled Mira out of the class?
No, I do not.
You recall Mira confirmed to you what she saw and what happened?
I know I interviewed her, and I believe she did say that he had gotten a spanking. But I don't have the notes. I cannot.
Okay, well, take your time then and look over that safety plan.
Okay.
And if you could please write what you wrote on the safety plan.
Repeat that again. What did you want?
If you could please write what you wrote on the safety plan.
Okay, you want me to read it?
Yes,
Oh, okay. What I said on the safety plan.
yes.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Okay. As far as the control factors of telling him what not to do,
All right, what did you write on the safety plan regarding the allegations?
okay. The allegations that I have here, Timothy Jones, he got upset with Nathaniel or Nathan. He choked him around his neck and pushed him against the wall and held him there. Child has a bruise on the neck that resembles a thumb or fingerprint.
All right, and need you, I'm sorry, Miss, you're gonna have to ask you to pull the microphone down right.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. Then I go on, here it has a section where it says action, and I have written here protection. One, Mr. Jones will agree not to use any physical discipline on any of the children and will use restrictions, and I have et cetera. Two, Mr. Jones will keep the home clean and neat to meet the basic needs of the children. Three, Mr. Jones agrees not to discuss the allegation of the report with the children. Four, DSS will continue to monitor the home and children. And five, that Mr. Jones will not wrestle with the children.
All right. Now I'm going to show you what is a document from the DSS. Thank you, Bob. And it states all the children reported observing their father grab the Tom by the chin. Do you recall making that entry?
Yes.
Okay. So does that help refresh your memory?
Well, I did not make this entry here. This was made by the supervisor.
Okay, but as part of your, based on your interviews with the children and your contact with them.
Yes.
Okay, so that would be an accurate entry that all of the children observed him grab Natan by the chin, correct?
Yes.
So after you go to the school, you get that information and you draw up the safety plan. Did you meet with the defendant so he was aware of all of those conditions in the safety plan?
Oh, yes.
And specifically that condition of no corporal punishment, but that includes any kind of spanking.
Absolutely.
And he understood that?
And he understood that.
That would be by hand, by belt, anything like
Right.
that.
He understood that.
And then I believe you testified that you went back even to the school the next day because you had concerns about possible repercussions.
Well, yes.
Because
Just
at this point,
as, again, continuing to assess risk. Yeah, with the
because
child.
at this point, he had actually been advised now by you that, hey, there's been a report by the school. We're going to have you sign the safety plan. No physical punishment towards the kids from this day forward. And he agreed to that. And when you went back the next day, I believe your words that were that Natan was reserved this day. Do you
Right.
remember that?
Yes, I remember.
He was
that.
in fact very reluctant and afraid to even talk on that second day, correct?
Yeah, he was reserved.
So now we're going to move forward, Ms. Henry, that's May 5th, 2014, and of course that safety plan remains in effect.
Yes.
I believe Mr. Madsen was asking you about how it was written up in your records, and the wording was that it was written up as founded for substantial risk of physical abuse.
Yes.
But your agency made the decision to not intervene with any further treatment because you had that safety plan in place.
Yes.
So the safety plan is really meant to be a safety measure that a parent is to follow.
That's correct.
And so now moving forward to August 7th, 2014, that's going to be the next report. And I believe you testified on direct that when you met with him, he told you the report had come from a disgruntled babysitter. That was
Yeah, he made a statement, yeah, to me like that.
That's something he just kind of said along the way when you went to the house.
Yes.
Now, again, the process is that it's called in by the reporter, but you're not actually taking that call.
That's correct.
And so then that intake worker passes the information on to you, correct?
Correct.
And so by the time you went to the house to check on the kids on August 7th, 2014, were you aware that that babysitter, that the reporter had actually called it in as a spanking incident with Natan?
Okay, I'm
Okay.
not following. Okay.
So how was it called in? What was the basis of that report on August 7th?
Evidently, I don't have the allegation in front of me, but the reporter called in, this is another concern that we have, or this is what's happening.
Okay,
And I went out on the report.
okay. And when you got there, you were kind of focused on Eli because he had the visible bruise above the eye that turned out to be an accidental bruise.
Yes, after talking with everyone, yes.
But were you aware that when that babysitter, Joy Lorick, and a friend of hers, Mary Tanner, called into the intake worker, they actually were reporting that both Gabe, who was 2, and Natan, who was 6 and had been the subject of the safety plan, had been spanked by Mr. Jones on a trip to Disney World?
No, no, I wasn't aware of any of that, no.
And once again, you meet with him there at the residence. You met with him there at the
Oh, that's
residence.
a question, I'm sorry, I thought, okay, yes.
And do you recall what his reaction was to you arriving there for yet another intervention by DSS involving the physical abuse allegations against the children?
Yes, he was surprised to see me there with the deputies. And so again, I read the report to him and, told him that I needed to see the children. And that's, as I said, that's when, one of the deputies kept him up by his trailer, and I proceeded to the babysitter with the other deputy.
Okay, and so just to clarify, that babysitter is the babysitter that lived just across the way, next door, and her name's Christina Elkie.
Yes,
That sounds familiar?
yes,
And she's the one that said, well, from everything she's seen, it appears fine, correct?
just a minute, when you're saying the name here. Babysitter.
That would be EHLKE.
Right there. I have her name here, just a minute.
How much more you got, Miss?
Maybe 10 minutes, Your Honor.
Okay. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, so Christina Elkie.
Yes,
Right. And just to clarify, that is not the same babysitter that would have called in the report, correct?
no,
Okay.
it
So
would not
This
have been.
babysitter was caught by surprise
Yes,
that you guys were showing up.
yes.
And the babysitter that actually called in the report, Joy Lorick, along with Mary Tanner, making that phone call, did you ever actually speak with either one of them about?
No, I did not.
Ever ask Joy Lorick what she had seen that caused her to make the report?
No, I didn't get a chance, no.
And so once again, another safety plan is signed, even though that one's still in effect, correct?
Correct.
And the safety plan covers all of the children, not just Natan.
That's
Every
correct.
single one of the children.
Yes,
And then once again, he signs the safety plan on August 7th, 2014, agreeing yet again that he will not use any corporal punishment on any of the children.
correct, correct.
Any doubt in your mind, Ms. Henry, that he understood those terms and conditions?
He understood, yes.
And that's pretty much how y'all left it on August 7th, 2014, 3 weeks before the homicides, correct?
That's correct.
With the understanding he would not lay hands on the children.
That's correct.
So, Ms. Henry, if he was spanking one of the children, hitting on one of the children on the night of August 28th, he was in violation of your safety plan?
That would have been a violation, yes, ma'am.
The safety plan that you had him sign because, according to your agency, there was a substantial risk of physical abuse?
Yes.
Nothing further.
A few follow-ups. Now, the first case ended on 7/24 of 2014, correct?
With the first report,
Yes.
yes.
And the safety plan is tied to that, so once that case ends, the safety plan kind of goes away with it, correct? In other words, DSS isn't looking at him, there's no jurisdiction after 7/24. He's not being investigated.
Yes, I guess that'd be correct, yes.
So that safety plan would be over. And I'm going to show you the seconds.
It's gonna be one, Jordan? Okay, just one, they had two pieces of paper? Okay.
I'm going to show you Defense for ID 235. Is that second safety plan that Ms. Mays was asking you about?
I believe so, I guess.
Can you take a look down there and see the conditions? Can you read what you wrote as far as the conditions on that one?
Yes, protection, Tim Jones will take Elena to her pediatric/doctor care for diaper rash. 2, Tim will continue to provide the basics for the children and will clean the trailer and remove excess clothing.
And that's all that safety plan had in it, correct?
That's correct.
We would move Defense for ID 235 into evidence.
I believe it's actually already in, Your Honor.
It
I
might be.
believe that, safety plan from August 2014 is already marked as a defense exhibit, so it's in the vehicle.
If it's already in, it won't be putting it in, but we're gonna accept it for the time being, pending if
We
it's
just
somewhere
mark
else.
it as ID.
Yeah.
I think it is, but I think I had trouble finding it.
Mm.
Okay, good, so I'm gonna mark it ID for right now.
For right now. If we can't locate the other one, then that one's coming in. That way we'll at least have one of the two. Same report.
So on that second safety plan, when Ms. May said, hey, it said no corporal punishment, that's not correct, is it? It doesn't say that in there.
But the intent is that he knew that he was not to spank the children.
And the first one is done when that case
And
is done.
that's it, and that is
7/20.
dealing with that particular allegation.
That's all the questions I have.
And just to follow up, you recall having verbal conversations with him where he agreed not to spank the children? correct?
Absolutely, he knew,
Thank you,
yes.
Ms. Henry.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. You are free to go. All right, I think we're done. We worked almost for a late lunch. Y'all, 2:30, give us a little more an hour, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. All right? Talk about the case.